we scan it by allowing wavelengths to pass through it. Okay, and then the response of the material is observed. So what is basic arrangement for that? You see, the we have a source which emits light, and this light emitted is, this is a wide wavelength, wide range wavelength source. Okay, it emits wavelengths from 190 nanometers to say 900 nanometers. These limits vary from the apparatus to apparatus. You may have spectrophotometer which is in the UV visible region. You may have spectrophotometer which cover UV visible and infrared also. In case of infrared, this higher wavelength can maybe more than this, maybe 12, maybe 1000 nanometer or 15,000 nanometer or like that. Okay, so here is a source, and we take two beam from this source. One goes this way upside, another way down. There are mirrors and other lenses to focus the beam. Now we get the two beam. One beam allowed to pass through the reference, another beam passes through the sample here. Okay, then the two beam are taken here and then they fall here. Okay, here is a chopper wheel. चॉपर व्हील समथिंग लाइक अवर सीलिंग फैन में आप देखते हैं देयर आर फैंस एंड द गैप इन बिटवीन. Okay, so that kind of chopper wheel is there. So you see, when this chopper wheel rotates, sometimes fan come here in the path, and sometime it is open space. So when it is fan blade is here, then this blade contains reflected coating. Okay, it's like a mirror. So when the blade is here, this beams comes from here, it fall on the blade and get reflected. Okay, and then it goes here and finally it fall on the detector. And when the blade is not here, in that case these beams pass this way. I is the intensity after passing through the sample. So intensity after passing through the sample is I naught time this, and it is found to decay exponentially. Here it is the negative sign. I forget to put here negative sign with A. So it is like this. Okay, this A is called absorbance. A is called absorbance, and it depends on the sample we are using here, sample or the something that we have put over here. So it depends on how much thick is the sample. Okay, how much is the path of the how much path length beam travel through the sample, that is, you can say d path length. Okay, now when the beam passes through the sample or whatever kept here, then beam interact with the molecules, atoms, particle inside this sample. Okay, and they have characteristic to absorb the light. They have characteristic to absorb the wavelengths, certain radiation. So it may absorb, it may not absorb. That is the property of the atoms, molecule of the medium. Okay, and that property is the wavelength dependent absorptivity. It is called A is the small a, wavelength dependent absorptivity per mole per centimeter. Okay, and C is the concentration of such atoms, molecule absorbing species. Suppose you have something placed over here and you have some material taken with some solvent. So how much is the concentration of absorbing species? That is C. So light, when it passes through the sample, it will
screen is not sharing.
Yes,
screen share नहीं हो रही है सर.
कब से?
अभी से सर, just now.
Okay. रुक गया क्या? एकदम, wait a minute.
Kindly share it again, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying. Are you getting? It's getting now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so any such interruption happens, you just let me know, okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes, participants, students, others, are you getting the screen shared on your screens?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I would like you to keep on interacting, asking it in between. That would be better for me. It should not be one way. So it will not be open discussion, but somebody somewhere you have any small doubt, you can ask. बहुत ज़्यादा भी नहीं होगा क्योंकि फिर अदरवाइज हम कंप्लीट नहीं कर पाएंगे, बट थोड़ा बहुत बीच में आप इंटरेक्ट करते रहिए, और कुछ नहीं है तो जरा यस तो बोलते रहिएगा बीच बीच में, सो दैट आई फील कि इट इज बोथ वे कम्युनिकेशन और कनेक्शन लाइव है. कई बार क्या होता है, कनेक्शन रुक जाता है और हम बोले जा रहे हैं और पता लगा बाद में कि ये तो डाउन हो गया, सब बंद हो गया. ठीक है, सो दैट वे कीप इट लाइव. Okay, so here intensity is decreases exponentially like this. Okay, so we write I upon I naught from here, and we get exponential minus a, and I upon I naught intensity transmitted, intensity after passing through sample divided by intensity incident before the entering the sample, how much it is. So this ratio, it is called transmission coefficient or transmittivity, T. So T we can write exponential minus a. So from here we can write A absorbance equal to minus log ET. Okay, so that is how we relate absorbance A and transmittivity or transmission coefficient. And what is absorbance? Basically it is this. Absorbance is it depends on the path length of the sample, thickness of the sample. It depends on the concentration of the absorbing species inside the sample in this container, whatever you kept over here. It also depends on the concentration of the absorbing species as well as their absorption power. There may be species which may not absorb. There may be species which may less absorb. There may be species which absorb more. Okay, so it also depends what is their absorption capability. So that is absorptivity A, concentration C, and path length D. So इन तीनों पे डिपेंड करेगा कि how much light passes through the how much is the light after passing through the sample or the material medium, whatever you have put it here. Okay, so this ratio I upon I naught, it is T. Okay, so what we do here here you have a sample. Your sample may be solute dissolved in some solvent, or your sample may be something film coated on a glass slide. So it is every time it is not possible to put your sample here alone. Always you insert the sample with something. Your sample will be inside a container. तो light जो container wall से pass होगी, so container wall will also absorb. If your sample is on glass slide, thin film deposited on glass slide, then this light passes through the sample as well as the glass slide. Okay, so whatever sample you take, you cannot take sample alone. Your sample must be contained within some container, or it is deposited on some substrate support. So that container or support, light also passes through that, and container or support substrate जो है वो भी कुछ absorb करेगा. Okay, so to avoid that or to cancel out that absorption due to substrate or container or anything else, whichever there, we take two beams. So there one beam passes through the reference. Reference here is uncoated glass light, or it is a empty cubette, empty container, empty container. And here it is a coated slide and container filled with the sample. So when the light passes through here, light get absorbed by the substrate, or light get absorbed by the container walls. Here light get absorbed by both. Okay, and when we take the two beams here, so these two beams are taken one by one, and then detector observe the intensity of both the beams, and it is electronically manipulated, and what we get resultant is ratio of the intensities of the two beams. तो ये जो two beams की intensity ratio होगा वो आपको that will be available as output of the detector, and this output of the detector is taken and it is got plotted over a paper, okay, as a function of wavelength. Okay, so this source is a continuous white light type source, or you may have 2-3 sources, because we cannot have single source which can emit entire wavelength. Okay, so you may have deuterium lamp which emits UV light maybe 190 to 4000 angstroms. Then you may have tungsten lamp which may emit 4000 onward up to say 900 nanometer. 4000 I'm saying 4000 angstroms or 400 nanometer. 9000 angstroms or 900 nanometers. Okay, visible. So if you are using IR, if we are using this wavelength in infrared range, then we have to use some other source also. So this is a source, and here is arrangement also to filter out the wavelengths. So this source is emitting all wavelengths simultaneously. So these wavelengths are filtered, and one wavelength allowed to pass through here at a time. So यहाँ पे arrangement में show नहीं किया है, but here is a filter also which allow single wavelength at a time. So then it is scanned. So sample को जब scan करेंगे, then we get a plot, and that plot is transmission versus wavelength. Okay, transmission versus wavelength plot कैसे हो सकता है? How it looks like? You can see it will be like this. Okay, this is the typical plot of the spectrophotometer. Okay, spectrophotometer plot like this, where you get transmission coefficient versus wavelength. So you get this plot, wavelength from 100 angstroms to 800 angstroms, and you may have plot where you can get absorption coefficient. This is the absorption coefficient versus wavelength. So it depends what you want to plot. आप प्लॉट में absorbance चाहते हैं या फिर ट्रांसमिशन कोफिशिएंट चाहते हैं, तो वो उसमें एक मोड होता है. यू कैन सेलेक्ट you want absorbance measurement or transmission measurement. So this is the transmission plot, absorption plot. So here you see this particular sample जो भी लिया है, जस्ट मैं एग्जांपल के तौर पर इसको शो कर रहा हूँ, जिंक ऑक्साइड मटेरियल लिया है. सो यू विल फाइंड 400 एंगस्ट्रॉम्स के आगे, above 400 angstroms, the transmission coefficient is very high, more than 80%. It means all wavelength above 400 angstroms are passing through the sample, and all wavelengths below somewhere 370, they are strongly absorbed. Strongly absorbed मतलब ट्रांसमिशन नहीं हो रहा. जब वो एब्जॉर्ब हो गई तो ट्रांसमिट होके आगे नहीं पहुंची तो डिटेक्टर के पास नहीं गई, तो that signal is poor. So transmission is less. So transmission is less in the lower wavelength. Transmission is very high above this. And if you plot absorbance, you will see in the lower range absorbance is very high, and for higher range absorbance is very small. Okay, so something happening here that absorbance or transmission behavior changing strongly. So this is point of interest जिससे हमें पता चलेगा कि ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है। इस वेवलेंथ के आगे ट्रांसमिशन हाई है, बिफोर इट इज लेस, सो it has characteristic behavior around this wavelength, and wavelength hc by lambda corresponding hc by lambda h nu corresponding h nu energy मतलब इस wavelength के corresponding energy भी होगा. It means higher wavelength less energies. These are the low energy waves. This is the low energy radiation and this is high energy radiation. Less wavelength, high energy. So higher energies are absorbed and less energies are transmitted. It means material has something characteristic that higher energies are absorbed and low energies are transmitted. Something से अगर if you see semiconductor behavior, तो semiconductor के अंदर ऐसा होता है, semiconductor has band gap, and once you have band gap, all energies above band gap energy they are absorbed, and all energies below Eg they do not absorb, they get transmitted. तो इससे फिर ये information मिलेगा, here is something, this energy corresponding to band gap of the material. Okay, and if somebody doing chemistry work, तो उसमें chemical compounds का जब अगर analysis करते हैं, तो you can take compound dissolved in some solvent, and solvent should be such that it has no absorption characteristic. And when you take spectrum of the compound, so these compounds material they have bonds, okay, and corresponding to their bond energy, when radiation of particular wavelength is allowed to pass through the compound, okay, in that case those bond breaks and those compound absorb those particular energies. Compound absorbs those particular energies corresponding to those binding energies of the bonds. उससे क्या अगर बॉन्ड ब्रेक होंगे, तो बॉन्ड ब्रेक होंगे तो अल्टीमेटली स्पेसिफिक सर्टेन वेवलेंथ जो आपकी एब्जॉर्ब हो जाएंगी. तो अगर केमिकल एनालिसिस आप कर रहे हैं तो उसमें आप देखेंगे कि अगर आपका ट्रांसमिशन स्पेक्ट्रम है, सो यू विल बी हैविंग लाइट. I don't have sample for that, so I can't show, but I can explain you. So you will see उसका characteristic कैसा होगा. The transmission will be very high. All wavelength will be getting transmitted, but particular wavelength will be strongly absorbed. तो उस पे एक डिप आ जाएगा, एक तो ऐसे करके आ जाएगा, एक इस तरह से यहाँ डिप आएगा और फिर इस तरह से you will get this. Okay, and if you see absorption peak, in that case you will see its absorption will be more lower like this, and suddenly at particular wavelength it will absorb large. So absorption peak मिलेगा. So from that absorption peak we can locate ki at which wavelength this peak is happening, and corresponding to this wavelength you have certain energy as you corresponding to lambda hc by lambda you have certain energy. So you can say ki okay, this is happening at this wavelength, it is happening at this energy, it may be particular compound or material. Now in literature it is already reported that which compound will have absorption at which wavelength. It is known for all materials, all compounds. Theoretically people have done so much work, and it is reported in the literature that it is reported for every compound, every material, that if you take particular CO2 gas will absorb at this wavelength. Okay, you take nitrogen, it will absorb at this. If you take particular molecule, some organic compound, this organic compound will have absorption wavelength at that particular wavelength. तो वो known है literature में. Only what we have to do, we have to take our material, take its analysis, and हमें compare करके देखना है कि ये absorption peak किस पे आई है और इस material की. तो ये confirmation test है. आप कोई compound बना रहे हैं, आप you are synthesizing a material and you expect that आपका result according to your product of the reaction, you should get this compound. So are you getting that compound or not? Because you expecting that I should get this compound. तो वो compound लेने का मतलब है आपको theoretically पता है कि कि उस कंपाउंड की पीक यहाँ पे मिलेगी. तो दैट you know prior knowledge you have. So you just take the spectrum and compare it and you see कि आपकी पीक वहीं पे आ रही है कि नहीं आ रही है. अगर आपकी पीक वहां पे आ रही है, you will be happy to know कि आपका वो कंपाउंड बन गया है. और अगर वो पीक इधर उधर शिफ्टेड है, तो पीक आ रही है इसका मतलब कुछ तो बना है, बट उसमें शिफ्ट है. शिफ्ट होने का कुछ मतलब हो सकता है. और अगर पीक नहीं मिल रहा है, देन you will be little unhappy कि ओके ये तो कुछ हुआ नहीं है, आपका रिएक्शन प्रॉपर नहीं हुआ है, प्रोडक्ट प्रॉपरली नहीं बना. सो दिस वे one can confirm. Yes, everybody listening to me, it's clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us see these relations. Here is this we have already seen. We relate transmission coefficient to A, absorbance. Now here the same relation we can again write I upon I naught, which is T equal to E minus A. A को हम लिखेंगे again, A basically A is A, C and D. Okay, A, C. A is the absorptivity, C the concentration and D the path length. Okay, ये जो absorbance यहाँ पे आया था, ये absorbance A it is of three factor. ये तीन फैक्टर है इसमें. Absorptivity A, concentration C and the sample thickness. ये path length ये है आपकी sample thickness है. How much is the path, the ray traveling through the sample. Okay, तो इसमें से हम path length को separate कर लेंगे और दो जो पैरामीटर है गए एब्जॉर्प्टिविटी एंड कंसंट्रेशन, उसको मिला के अल्फा लिखेंगे. ओके, तो पहले तो ये एब्जॉर्प्शन की फॉर्म में था, बट नाउ वी विल पुट इट इन अनदर फॉर्म, राइटिंग इट एज माइनस अल्फा डी. अल्फा डी में क्या है? अल्फा इज ए एंड सी, एब्जॉर्प्टिविटी एंड कंसंट्रेशन, एंड डी द पाथ लेंथ. अल्फा डी जो है एब्जॉर्बेंस है, इंटायर अल्फा डी मिलके एब्जॉर्बेंस बन रहा है. ओके, बट वी विल पुट इट हियर एज अल्फा डी. तो ये जो अल्फा है, अल्फा इज कॉल्ड एब्जॉर्प्शन कोएफिशिएंट. अल्फा इज called absorption coefficient, and now we write this relation in term of alpha. So alpha from here will be minus 1 upon d log e to the base t, because this is t, ये t हो गया. तो यहां से ये मिल जाएगा आपको. तो यहां पे we will get alpha. So we can write alpha here, and now one can do thin film analysis. In case of thin film, like physics people do thin film analysis, in that case we have a glass slide, and glass slide coated with the thin film, some material coated on the glass slide. So this is our sample. Okay, so in that case we take light intensity which is falling on the slide is I naught. Now when you take thin film for material, most of the time thin films जो है they are smooth shining है, and they have some reflection coefficient. So they have finite reflectivity. So some of the radiation will get reflected here. We are assuming कि ये जो साइड है, ये जो स्लाइड का लेफ्ट साइड है, इस पे कोटिंग किया है फिल्म. ओके, इसके ऊपर कोटिंग है, और so here light will get reflected from the top surface of the film. So एक certain fraction just get reflected from the surface. So depending upon the reflectivity 50% है, 20% है, 80% है, I naught R will be the reflected component. तो ये जो reflection है, reflection normally occurs from the top surface. ये within bulk से नहीं होता, ये top surface से हो जाता है. तो top few nanometer thin layer will reflect. बल्क में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. सो जो टॉप सरफेस ही रिफ्लेक्शन इज ए सरफेस प्रॉपर्टी. ओके, सो सरफेस से रिफ्लेक्ट हो जाएगा. सो देन हाउ मच एंटर्स इनटू द बल्क मीडियम? बल्क मीडियम में कितना एंटर करेगा? दैट इज ऑब्वियसली आई नॉट माइनस आई नॉट आर. आई नॉट माइनस I naught R will enter here. Okay, and when it enter here, how much will pass out? Again, it is pass out I equal to whatever just started entering into minus alpha d. ठीक है ना? This relation okay? So here transmitted जो intensity है that will be I naught minus I naught R into E minus alpha d. Okay, तो इसमें R factor include हो गया. Okay, so we write this here again, and I upon I naught, I upon I naught का मतलब है कि कितना इंटेंसिटी निकला और कितना इंसिडेंट हुआ, इसको हम ले रहे हैं ट्रांसमिशन कोएफिशिएंट. So it is T. So T is 1 minus R E minus alpha D. So here we can write alpha equal to this. So if sample has reflecting characteristic, then we can put relation like this. Okay, तो आपका alpha जो है, alpha you may have like this if it has no reflection coefficient. अगर आपका reflection behavior नहीं है, there is no reflection occurring from the sample, then you can write alpha this. And if you expect some reflectivity, तो आपका relation ये हो जाएगा. तो आप reflectivity को भी account कर लेंगे. और you can measure the reflection also from the spectrophotometer itself. But 80% spectrophotometer normally people uses, there is no option for reflection measurement. अगर आप reflection measurement spectrophotometer में करना है, then you need to have attachment for reflection measurement. So not necessarily every spectrophotometer you see that will have reflection measurement facility. Okay, so for reflection measurement facility, what we do, we take beam, two beams here. ये जो दो beams हैं, here we are passing beams through the sample, and you are passing beams through the sample, one through the sample and another passing through sample and the substrate. तो ये nullify हो जाएगा. उस केस में क्या करेंगे, सैंपल को समवेयर यहां रखेंगे. इन केस ऑफ रिफ्लेक्शन मेजरमेंट, सैंपल ये एग्जैक्ट अटैचमेंट, ये एग्जैक्ट स्कीमेटिक नहीं है, बट आई एम जस्ट टेलिंग यू इन प्रिंसिपल. देयर व्हाट वी डू इन प्रिंसिपल, दिस सैंपल विल बी प्लेस्ड समवेयर हियर सो दैट द रे गेट रिफ्लेक्टेड बाय द सैंपल. ठीक है, मैकेनिज्म ऐसा होगा कि these beam will be made reflected by the sample and the references. तो ये जो रिफ्लेक्ट होने के बाद कितनी यहां पे गई है, now it will measure R. Rest of the arrangement is same. और हो सकता है कि आपका प्लॉट में वो T ही शो करे, बिकॉज उस प्लॉट में ऑप्शन नहीं है कि उसको T को R बनाना. बट यू नो यू हैव प्लेस्ड सैंपल हियर. You have placed sample here, so you know it is R measurement. So you can measurement reflection coefficient. Hello? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Connectivity is there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, it's fine. So this way we can write like this, and now it is known in the literature, in the books it is mentioned कि ये जो आपका अल्फा है, अल्फा एब्जॉर्प्शन कोएफिशिएंट, इट इज फंक्शन ऑफ वेवलेंथ एनर्जी एच न्यू. ये एच न्यू है, ये एक्चुअली न्यू सिंबल अवेलेबल नहीं था तो मैंने गामा इंसर्ट कर दिया, बट बेसिकली इट इज ए न्यू. ओके, सो अल्फा डिपेंड्स ऑन एच न्यू एनर्जी लाइक दिस. ओके, सो हियर रिलेशन इज अवेलेबल, एंड दिस रिलेशन में alpha depends on h nu like this. It is for a semiconductor. Okay, ये semiconductor band gap है, तो semiconductor solids के लिए जो ये एनालिसिस किया गया है उसमें एक फैक्टर है n. n एक्सपोनेंट कांस्टेंट है और इसकी वैल्यू होती है हाफ फॉर द डायरेक्ट बैंड गैप सेमीकंडक्टर एंड 2 फॉर द इनडायरेक्ट बैंड गैप. ओके, तो इसको जब अगर हम डायरेक्ट बैंड गैप के लिए हाफ रखेंगे और हाफ रखेंगे, देन फर्दर यू सिंप्लीफाई, टेक h nu here, so you will get it is alpha h nu. So alpha h nu square equal to this. Okay, so if you plot alpha h nu versus h nu, it must be a straight line. Okay, so alpha h nu square को plot करना है as a function of h nu, right? So that's why to find band gap of the semiconductor we use this relation, and in those cases we plot alpha h nu square versus h nu, and there you need alpha. इसके लिए आपको अल्फा की जरूरत पड़ेगी, and there you have alpha this. That's how you get alpha, because ये आप a से नहीं निकाल सकते, इसके लिए अल्फा की जरूरत पड़ेगी, a से नहीं होगा, तो अल्फा को इसलिए यहाँ पे लिया है. So alpha you get this way, and when you get this plot, now you see here alpha h nu versus h nu. If you plot, now you have alpha available at all energies, all wavelengths. कहाँ कैसे? यहाँ से, because you have spectrum transmission versus wavelength, reflection versus wavelength. So you have t at every lambda, you have r at every lambda, you get alpha as a function of lambda. So you have alpha at every lambda. Okay, so then you plot this, और ये जो प्लॉट करेंगे उसमें, तो ये एक तरह से स्ट्रेट लाइन आएगा. तो अगर इस प्लॉट को लेते हैं, then you will find at h nu equal to Eg, something h nu equal to Eg, ये अल्फा 0 हो जाएगा, क्योंकि जब h nu Eg के बराबर होगा, तो h nu Eg के बराबर ये चीज 0 हो जाएगी, तो अल्फा मस्ट बी 0 देयर, अल्फा 0 हो जाना चाहिए. ठीक है ना? सो दिस प्लॉट, लेट अस सी दिस प्लॉट, ये कैसे है, ये जैसे यहाँ पे शो किया है, हियर इज दिस प्लॉट. ओके, ये ट्रांसमिशन है. सो हियर इन दिस पर्टिकुलर सैंपल यू सी स्ट्रॉन्ग ट्रांसमिशन अकरिंग हियर, एंड देयर इज एब्जॉर्प्शन एज इट इज कॉल्ड, एंड ट्रांसमिशन इज वेरी लो हियर. एंड इस तरह का अगर आप कोई यूवी विजिबल स्पेक्ट्रोफोटोमीटर से ग्राफ देखते हैं, तो मतलब इसका ये हुआ कि एक सेमीकंडक्टर नेचर प्रेडिक्ट करता है मटेरियल का, वेयर यू हैव ट्रांसमिशन बियॉन्ड सर्टेन वेवलेंथ वेरी हाई, एंड सडनली एट वन पर्टिकुलर नियर वेवलेंथ ये ट्रांसमिशन एकदम फॉल होके 0 के करीब आ जाता है. इट मीन्स ऑल एनर्जीज इन दिस रेंज दे आर एब्सॉर्ब्ड, and all energies beyond this value they are transmitted. Okay, तो ये कहीं पे बैंड गैप का इंडिकेटर होगा. तो इससे हम now we will find alpha, so we will make alpha versus h nu plot. Okay, एक और सैंपल का यहाँ पे शो किया है. Here is transmission coefficient, okay, and here is the reflection coefficient. For this case, इसको it is shown here. I think you can see here. ये एक सैंपल का ट्रांसमिशन कोफिशिएंट है, और ये इनसेट में रिफ्लेक्शन कोफिशिएंट है. So here R is available, here T is available. So from here you get alpha, and then you plot alpha h nu versus this. So when you plot it over entire wavelength, यहाँ पे आपको in this portion जहाँ पे ये ट्रांजिशन हो रहा है, there you get a straight line. Okay. And from this straight line when you extrapolate it, so this is that point of intersection. ये point of intersection है here where h nu becomes equal to Eg. So at this h nu equal to Eg, alpha h nu square equal to 0. ये 0 हो गया, देखो. तो ये उसी इक्वेशन से आया है. So that's why we extrapolate this part, straight line portion, to this x-axis. And point of intersection here is the point which corresponds to alpha equal to, sorry, h nu equal to Eg, and that's why we say this is the Eg band gap of the semiconductor. तो यहाँ से आपको semiconductor band gap निकलेगा from that relation. This is how we can find the band gap of the semiconductor using the UV visible spectrum. Yes, anybody, any point, any doubt? I think time तो बहुत हो गया. Hello, participants. Hello, participants listening.
Hello, sir. Kindly proceed next, sir. Actually,
I,
the second speaker is waiting.
okay, participants, please. Any question? Any little confusion here?
Any query from participants?
Related to UV visible? पार्टिसिपेंट्स लिसनिंग है, मैसेज ऑनलाइन है कि नहीं है? कहीं उनका मैसेज कट तो नहीं हो गया, ऐसे लग रहा है?
No, sir. No, sir. They are all online, sir.
कोई बोल ही नहीं रहे हैं. यस पार्टिसिपेंट्स लिसनिंग.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ओके ओके. सो एनी डाउट, एनी क्वेरी सो फार? ओके. तो मैडम आगे कितना टाइम मिलेगा? 45 मिनट्स?
Actually, sir, next speaker is waiting for his talk.
तो शुड आई स्टॉप? और एक्सरे तो लेंथी है, उसको तो टच करेंगे तो फिर टाइम बहुत लेगा.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir. Yes, sir.
I
No,
think
sir. Time is over, sir.
है ना?
Yes, sir.
तो आई अगेन इनवाइट पार्टिसिपेंट, अगर कोई स्मॉल क्वेरी यूवी विजिबल से रिलेटेड है तो आप पूछ
Any
सकते हैं.
query related to UV spectroscopy you can ask from sir. Participants, any query related to UV spectroscopy?
ओके, कोई बात नहीं. अगर आप बाद में इंटरेक्ट करना चाहें मेरे से तो यू कैन इंटरेक्ट, यू कैन कॉन्टेक्ट मी एनी टाइम. आई यू हैव माय मोबाइल नंबर एज वेल एज ईमेल. यू फील फ्री टू कॉन्टेक्ट मी फॉर एनी क्वेरी related to UV visible spectrophotometer. we can discuss. और मे भी एक्सरे से भी कुछ काम कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज एक्सरे हम डिस्कस तो नहीं कर पाएंगे बिकॉज ऑफ शॉर्टेज ऑफ टाइम. तो आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल टू डॉक्टर इंदू and this Career Point University for inviting me for this talk and being a part of this program. Okay,
Thank
madam,
you.
please.
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
sir. Thank you, sir. Sir has given a wonderful talk on UV visible spectroscopy. This lecture is beneficial for all the research scholars. So thank you very much, sir, for sparing time for us. Now, our next eminent speaker is Dr. Sanjeev Soni. He is working as a principal scientist at CSIR, Central Scientific Instrument Organization, Chandigarh, in the area of biomedical instrumentation. He is also coordinator of CSI Original Center, Delhi, and coordinator of Academic of Scientific and Innovative Research at CSIR CSIO. He has R&D experience of about 22 years in various capacities. He also served as research engineer for 7 years at Institute of Plasma Research, Department of Atomic Energy, Government of India towards R&D of plasma processing devices. He holds BTech degree in Mechanical Engineering from University of Madras, India, and PhD from IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, Ropar, India. Presently, he is working in the area of plasmonic photothermal phenomena for biomedical applications. He has also worked in the area of medical and rehabilitation robotic towards the design and development of robotic surgery system. Out of the completed R&D projects, 4 technologies has been transferred to the industries. His current research interests include biomedical device design, biological heat transfer, nanoparticle-based photothermal therapy, light tissue interaction, and optical properties of nanoparticles. So, now I am giving the proceeding to Dr. Sanjeev Soni. Please continue your talk.
Thanks, Dr. Indu. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
So I'm just sharing the contents. So is it visible now?
No, sir. No, sir. No visible. It is not visible, sir.
Just a minute. now?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir. This is visible, sir.
Okay, fine. So thanks for inviting me to deliver this talk. So I'll be speaking on this plasmonic photothermal therapeutics for next around 30 to 40 minutes. And uh, basically, so this work is an interdisciplinary phenomena which involves the plasmonics, the light, as well as the bioheat transfer. And we have been working in this area towards the device development as well as for the pre-treatment planning software applications. So presentation, the outline is like we'll discuss briefly about the cancer, its the available treatment methodologies, then a bit about the heat transfer and thermal biology, and then we'll come on to this plasmonic photothermal therapeutics. So what are the various therapeutic parameters which are generally required by a clinician to administer such therapy, and then we'll discuss the various coupled phenomena which are involved in this work. So one is the plasmonics, which we term as the light interaction of the nanoparticles. Another one is the biophotonics, so where we try to understand the light propagation within the tissue. And then there is a biological heat transfer where we try to understand and evaluate the thermal damage based on the blood flow within a tissue. And in the last, I'll also just show a few slides about the device development work which is going on here. So hope my slides are okay, right? These are visible to everyone?
Visible, sir. Visible.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So if you talk about cancer, so cancer is basically a group of diseases. It's not a single disease. So there are more than 100 diseases which together we term as cancer. So what happens is that in case of normal healthy organ, the healthy cells, they divide themselves, and at certain time they also die automatically. So this is known as the apoptosis. So this is a programmed cell death. But whenever there is some genetic change or genetic mutation in the human body, then those cells, they multiply but they don't die on its own. And this basically results in an uncontrolled growth of certain solid mass in case of solid tumors, and also in case of light blood cancer there may be liquid mass itself. So basically cancer means we have uncontrolled and abnormal growth of the human cells in the body, and depending on the type of the organ in which this cancer originates, we generally name it with a variety of prefixes. For example, if it's a liver based cancer, then we call this as hepatocellular carcinoma. If it's a skin based cancer, we call this as melanoma. So there are a few medical terminologies which generally we use to name these cancers. And so what is generally people ask that what is the reason why do we get this disease? So there are three main factors which has been specified. First one is the tobacco, which is the main responsible factor for oral cancer and other allied cancers. Next one is the diet, the pesticides, the chemicals, the artificial flavors which are present in the food. So these also cause variety of cancers, mainly the stomach cancer, colon cancer, etc. And also the liver cancer, because everything ultimately ends up in the liver. And another reason for cancer disease is the infection. So we have HPV infection, there are a variety of other infections which are responsible for these cancers, because these infections generally they induce certain genetic changes in the body. So if you just look at the cancer statistics in India, so you can see here we have among males and females. Among males we have the lung cancer, lip oral cavity cancer, which is very much prominent. And among females, it's a cervix cancer and breast cancer, as well as the ovarian cancer. So nowadays, there are so many cases are coming up for the oral cancer. And just to look at the cancer treatments, so there are three standard treatments which are generally followed in a clinical practice. So first one is the surgery, so which means we are trying to remove certain organ which is which contains so many cancer cells. But this basically, if there is that organ is not present in the human body, then the function of the body gets impaired. And the next one is the radiotherapy, where we use the high energy X-rays to treat or to kill the cancerous cells. But again, then these high energy X-rays, these have so many side effects. These result in formation of secondary cancers in the human body. And also, at the same time, it's also not possible to have radiotherapy of a particular organ again and again. And the next standard modality is the chemotherapy, where we inject certain poisonous drugs in the body so as to kill the cancer cells. But the problem associated here is that these drugs are not able to properly distinguish between the cancerous cells and healthy cells. So ultimately, these end up destroying the healthy tissues also. So obviously, there is a need for new techniques which are generally affordable and which can be selective. And even as on date, despite so many technological advances, you can see here that, for example, in case of breast cancer itself, we have 60% of the breast cancers, they are treated by surgery, which is like contains severe side effects, then around 11% using radiotherapy and 13% using chemotherapy. So overall, the survival rate of cancer patients is very much poor in India as well as worldwide. So obviously there are new techniques which have been coming up, like the hormonal therapy, immunotherapy, thermal ablation, photodynamic therapy. So, and nowadays the nanotechnology is also playing very much important role in translating newer techniques towards the clinical practice. So if you again just summarize this, then the cancer is the second most leading cause of deaths in the world after heart disease, and we have variety of cancers which are prevailing. Like among females, we have breast cancer, we have oral cancer, which is now a major challenge for India. And the equipments, either it's a surgery or radiotherapy, these are very costly equipments. So these are not available everywhere in all the states. So there is a challenge to have such a very high capital infrastructure or capital investment for these equipments. So obviously we need to look up at the other alternatives. And so in this context, this plasmonic photothermal therapeutics can be one of the solutions. So in a nutshell, what this plasmonic photothermal therapy is, that suppose we have a tumor, we need to inject certain nanoparticles in the tumor. So these can be the organic or inorganic nanoparticles. But when we talk about the plasmonics, these are generally the metallic nanoparticles. So, and then these nanoparticles, generally they should have absorption within a certain wavelength band, which is termed as the therapeutic window. So generally our body tissues, they are transparent to the certain wavelength of electromagnetic radiation. So like in this case, it is from 600 to 1300 nanometer. So where the light can have like better penetration in the human body. So we use that light for irradiation. So depending on this interaction of this radiation and nanoparticles, so these are not ionizing radiations. These are just like, these will not affect the healthy cells. So due to this radiation and nanoparticle interaction, there is a absorption of this radiation, and which ultimately leads to the non-radiative decay. That is, whatever intensity is absorbed, that is basically it's dissipated to the surrounding medium in form of heat. So this way it's possible to heat a particular tissue or particular tumor within the human body. So there are certain temperatures which are to be attained to ensure that there is a cell kill. So again, we have two regimes. One is called as hyperthermia, other one is called as thermal ablation. So in hyperthermia, we have temperatures in the range of around 46 degrees Celsius for around 30 to 120 minutes. But if we go for higher temperatures, then it's possible to damage the cells within 1 to 5 minutes duration. And this hypothermia is like very old treatment, because in earlier days, the people, the older surgeons, they used to induce the artificial fever in the humans to treat the cancer cells. So depending on the nanoparticle geometry, we can have a particular absorption band available for us. So just to discuss this further, we should have a bit knowledge about the heat transfer. So there are three modes, because ultimately we are going to heat a particular tissue in the human body. So you might be aware about the conduction, where there is a flow of heat, like one end is at higher temperature, there is a flow of heat from higher temperature to lower temperature through the physical contact. Another one is the convection, where you could have seen some convection currents, fluid flow in the boiling water. And also we have radiation phenomena. For example, in case of temple, if you visit, then obviously you feel the black tiles are like very much heated as compared to the white tiles. And all these phenomena can be present individually, or these can be present in a combined form. For example, nowadays in winter we use the thermos bottles. So all these three phenomena can occur together, and we need to deal with this. So in context to the human body, so we know that human body is made up of cells. So cell is the smallest living, you can say, constituent of human body. Again, cells, they are made up of various molecules, organelle, and from cells we get tissues, and from the tissues we get certain organs, and based on organs we have organ systems, and ultimately the individual. So if you talk about a particular tissue, there are 4 types of you can say tissues are there for each and every organ. So one is the epithelium, which is the innermost layer of a particular tissue, and then we have connective tissue which support various parts of the tissue. We have muscle tissues which are responsible for the movement of particular organ, and then we have nervous tissue which basically transmit the brain signal to the various tissues for functioning. So again, in context of the thermal biology, we are aware that whenever we come across any disease, then we say that, okay, this person has got a fever. So if there is a problem in the human body, it is generally represented in form of fever. In the same way, if we induce fever, then we can also alter the functioning of human body. So both the diagnosis as well as therapeutics, these can be very well developed using these temperature-based principles. So you can see the complexity involved, but here, so this is just a cell, around 10-20 micron diameter cell, and it has so many components inside this. And when this cell joins to form a particular, you can say, tissue, for example, skin, so it becomes so much complex here. So we need to deal with all this complexity when developing some treatment protocols for the human body. And regarding the thermal biology, there are so many applications. We can use it for cancer treatment. We can use these principles to cool certain person, like head of somebody who is undergoing surgery or who is undergoing the chemotherapy. So there are various temperature regimes, like you know that our body temperature is around 98.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So that corresponds to 37 degrees Celsius. So higher than that, we call this as hypothermia or the thermal ablation. And if you're dealing with the lower temperatures below the body temperature, then we call this as the hypothermia or the cryogenic temperatures. So it is possible to keep a tissue intact at lower temperatures, and it's possible to destroy a tissue at higher temperatures. So there are again various temperature regimes in which human tissue responds. So for example, at 42 degrees Celsius, we are able to deliver more medicine to a particular tissue. At higher temperatures, say around 50 degrees Celsius, there is an irreversible damage to the tissue. Like this concept is similar to boiling of an egg. So when we boil an egg, it gets coagulated and there is a damage to the cells. So, but one main factor for designing such treatments is the blood flow, which is there in the human body. So we know that our body tries to maintain the core body temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius. So for example, if you see when a human is standing in a warm environment, or if someone is standing in a cold environment, so there is a variation of the temperature in the extremities. So that's why in these winter sessions, you have lower temperature at our extremities and we feel dry skin kind of things. So blood is a very much important factor which need to be accounted while designing such treatments. And for example, suppose if there would not have been any blood flow in the human body, our normal temperature would have been 80 degrees Celsius. So blood is a crucial factor for the thermal biology. So now suppose if I have an idea of the blood flow, how do I convert this blood flow characteristics to a numerical formulation so that we can come up with certain models to predict what is happening inside the human body. So one of such models is the PENS bioheat model, where we are using the bioheat transfer phenomena, and that accounts for the blood flow in this way. So like you have an artery, there's blood flowing, and then the artery goes into certain form of capillary bed which is embedded within the tissue, and the blood comes out through the vein. So numerically we can like model this phenomena using certain equations. So this is famous Pie-Heat equation, which basically tells us about the temperature as a function of time, and this is the temperature within the tissue, the special form of temperature, and based on certain heat inputs, which are either can be external or it can be the heat which is taken by the blood, can be metabolic heat or the external heat. So for example, if you see onto this left hand side bottom, this is a SEM image of a chicken retina. So this scale is around 40 micron. So you can see there is such a fine structure of the blood vessels available, but this is common for a healthy tissue, but in case of tumors, such structure does not exist. So it becomes more challenging to incorporate the effect of blood flow for a tumor tissue. So suppose now I need to decide like what kind of nanoparticle dose is to be injected in a particular tumor, what should be the intensity for, and what should be the duration for which this is to be irradiated, and what should be the size of nanoparticles. So all these parameters, like it's called the pre-treatment planning for this therapy, and the clinician should do this in advance before such therapies like administered to a patient. So for example, in case of radiotherapy for cancer, there also clinicians, they do the treatment planning. They first of all find out, depending on the tumor volume, how much dose of the X-ray is to be given and for how long. So similarly here also this thing is to be done. So for example, just to simplify this, suppose if we have a tumor which is embedded in a big healthy tissue, we can just simplify that numerical domain like this. And if we take a symmetric section, so then it becomes something like this. So we have a tumor and we have surrounding healthy tissue here. So now we need to find out that what should be the parameters of these nanoparticles and radiation so that we get the desired temperatures within a tissue. So this case is for a high-risk skin cancer. So if we talk about the therapeutic parameters, as I said, these are required by the clinician. So first one is the intensity of light, which is required, for how long the exposure duration, how much dose of nanoparticles, whether we need to treat only tumor or we need to treat certain areas surrounding the tumor. So we call these as tumor margins. And these parameters are governed mainly by the nanoparticle characteristics, the type of nanoparticle which we are using for this therapy. So what the material of that particle, the size, morphology, and the delivery route, how we are going to deliver, either we are going for an intravenous injection or we are going for a local tumor injection. And then the tumor characteristics, what are the various optical characteristics of the tumor, because each tumor has different characteristics. Even two tumors of similar type, for example, if it's a liver tumor, then two tumors are also different totally among themselves, and they possess different characteristics. And then also the characteristics of the radiation, the source which we are using, its spectral form, spatial form, as well as the shape and size of the optical beam. So the first foremost thing is that we should model like how the interaction of nanoparticles and the light occurs, because that will that will give us basically the absorption coefficients, like how much energy of that particular light will be absorbed within the tissue. So here, like you can see this, so in case of metallic nanoparticles, we have free electrons, and when we shine light of certain wavelength, there is an oscillation of those electrons. We call these as plasmons, and these plasmons are there for a few picoseconds, and then ultimately this oscillating energy is dissipated to the phonons in form of heat. So there is a heating of the medium in the surrounding of the nanoparticle. So there is polarization occurs for such nanoparticles, which depends on the dielectric function of the medium of the nanoparticle, which also depends on the dielectric function of the surroundings in which that particular nanoparticle is embedded. So in this case, it will be a tissue, because nanoparticle is embedded in a tissue. And based on the geometrical parameters, we can find out that, okay, this much is the polarization occurring. And also what happens, because in case of nanotechnology, we are trying to use the size which is generally lower than the mean free path of the electrons for particular material. For example, in case of gold particles, we have mean free path of around 50 nanometers. So when the dimensions becomes lower than the mean free path, then this dielectric function of a particular material, it starts depending on to the size also, apart from the frequency. So for such kind of materials, we need to consider the dielectric function as a size dependent function also. And there are various equations which are available in the literature. So once we compute these, we can come up with certain coefficients, optical scattering and absorption coefficients. And based on this absorption and scattering coefficients, we can estimate that, okay, this much energy is being dumped in the vicinity of a nanoparticle. So once this is done, then also we should decide what kind of nanoparticle, what should be the optimum size of the nanoparticle. So for this plasmonic photothermal therapy, basically what we do is that our aim is to have maximum absorption possible. So here we can compute the ratio of the absorption efficiency as well as the scattering efficiency. And if we take three types of particles, one of size 5 nanometer, 10, 15 nanometer, so on evaluation, it's clear that the smaller size particles, they have higher absorption efficiency as compared to the scattering. And also then we can evaluate the corresponding scattered energy by these particles. So ultimately it comes out that we have to use the smaller size nanorods for this application. Then next is that now we have fixed the size of particle. Now we need to deliver these particles into the human body. So again, based on the delivery route, I can just simply inject nanoparticles within a tumor itself. So we will have a local accumulation of the particles near the injection site, or I can inject these through the intravenous route, means these will flow through the blood stream of the body, and these will try to accumulate in the periphery of the tumor, because in case of tumor, most of the blood vessels are located in the periphery. Or they can also be an ideal case where we have nanoparticles present throughout the tumor. So in this case, these three cases were evaluated. And also when we have like heterogeneous distribution of nanoparticles in the human body, we need to also study the light propagation in the bare tissue itself. Because when light comes in contact with the nanoparticles, it will immediately get absorbed. But when it comes in contact with the like plain tissue or the bare tissue, these phenomena occur. So the incident light, it gets, part of it gets reflected, some of the light will be absorbed, it will be scattered, and some of the light can be transmitted. So there are three main terms which are used for the light propagation. One is the absorption coefficient, scattering coefficient, and average cosine of the scatter. So this number basically tells us whether we have a forward scattering of the light or the reverse scattering of the light. So you can see this cartoon, they say when the lasers were invented, they said, okay, lasers are so good technique that it's possible to burn everything with the laser, and that also finally. But ultimately in the nowadays, it comes out that we should be able to burn only the desired tissue, not the tissue surrounding it. So this light transport within either plain tissue or a nanoparticle embedded tissue, it can be modeled through the Monte Carlo approach. So this, on to the right hand side, we have this algorithm. This is available in the standard books. So here what we do is that we launch photons. So light is nothing but this, it has a dual character, wave as well as particle nature. So here we use the particle nature. So we are launching photons one by one into the tissue itself, and we check whether that photon is within the boundaries. If there is absorption, we call this as a drop, and if there is a scattering, we call this as a spin. So by these phenomena, we are able to decide, suppose if I have launched a photon of weight 1, then obviously due to these things, its weight will reduce, and ultimately we'll be able to terminate the launch of photon after it has like reached a certain very low value of the weight. So now we need to repeat this loop for a number of photons, maybe around 10 per 5 or 10 per 6 photons, and ultimately we get certain light outputs. So for example, you can see here, if I just launch light here onto this portion of the bare tissue, basically we are getting this kind of intensity profile at this interface. So Once I know the intensity profile at this interface, I can model the plasmonic interaction for these gold nanoparticles and solve for the temperatures. So once we have idea about the light interaction and the energy which is dumped into the tissue, now we need to model the temperature also, how the temperature is evolving in that particular tissue. So for that, again, same Penz model which we discussed earlier. So depending on the geometry, we can convert this equation to the cylindrical coordinates or even the spherical coordinates, depending on the requirement, and by giving certain boundary conditions, this can be solved further. There are a variety of parameters for the tissue as well as the tumor as well as for the nanoparticles which are to be specified in the particular model so that we can compute the resulting temperatures. So when we perform computations, we end up with these kinds of plots. So these are basically the plots of the temperature within certain boundary, tumor boundary. So you can see here, for example, this is the red line shows the tumor region. So within this red line we have tumor, and outside this red line we have the healthy tissue. So aim is only to damage the tumor and to spare the healthy tissue. So based on either contours, or we can plot temperatures at various tumor depths. We can also look at the 3D plots to understand the temperature evolution. So as we were discussing that depending on the injection method, suppose if you are going for intravenous injection, or if we are assuming that there is a uniform distribution of nanoparticles in the tumor, we can have a variety of temperature results available with this, and based on these results we can decide a suitable protocol for administration of this therapy. So for example, here you can see that if we plot the temperature as a function of time for two points, that one is at this point and one is the deepermost corner of the tumor. So you can see here the deepermost corner of the tumor is at around 40 degrees Celsius. So that temperature is not sufficient to destroy the tumor cells. So obviously this kind of modality will not be efficient and there will be reoccurrence of the cancer. Whereas if you see about this picture, then you can see that even at the deepermost corner of the tumor here, we are getting temperature more than 50 degrees Celsius, so which is sufficient to destroy this kind of tumor in a complete manner. So depending on these plots, we can arrive at the desired set protocols. And apart from this nanoparticle delivery, we also need to consider the blood flow within the tumor. So for example, you can see this is just schematic of a tumor. So when the tumor grows, it contains dead cells in the central region because there is no nutrition in this region. So as it grows, it engulfs the blood vessels of the surrounding healthy tissues, and most of the blood flow is there in the periphery of the tumor, and there's a dead region here. So we need to consider this heterogeneity of blood flow in the tumor. At the same time, what happens is that, earlier I gave an example of that, if we try to heat particular tissue, it starts coagulating. Similarly, the blood vessels will also start coagulating. So what happens when the blood vessels start coagulating, then there is no blood flow. So obviously, we can heat the tissue to a larger extent. So all these things are also to be considered in the model, and then only we can arrive at the desired thermal damage regions for a particular tumor. So for example, you can see here, so just for same set of therapeutic parameters, depending on the blood flow within the tumor, we can have different thermal damage zones in the tissue. So for example, you can see here this red line. Within the red line we have tumor, and this is the healthy tissue. So depending on the tumor characteristics, depending on how much dead cell area we have in the tumor, how much is the blood flow, we can have three different zones which clearly tell us that we need to consider these necrotic regions as well as the blood flow so that we estimate the proper damage to the tumor. And accordingly, we can, if there is a higher blood flow, we can increase the irradiation duration so that we try to reach thermal damage into the full of the tumor zone. But when we do numerical modeling, it's also important that we need to validate these models. But again, the validation is very tough for the bio thing. So without blood flow, we did some validations in the lab, and then we extended these results to the actual tissue by considering the blood flow. So here what it was done that we made a nanoparticle embedded gel which represents a tumor, and there is a plain gel which represents the healthy tissue. Similarly, same was done for the radial characteristics also. So we could and these are some thermocouples which were inserted into this, and we used some light source to shine radiation onto this area. And so these are the results which we got. So experimental data is represented by these lines, and these markers represent the simulated data. So we could see that there is a good agreement, and we could validate our model with this, and then it was extended to the blood flow, actual blood flow. And also, like what happens is that in actual practice, when we deliver nanoparticles to a tumor, what happens is that it's not that all of the nanoparticles will be delivered to the tumor site. So even whatever protocol we choose, we don't have full control of the nanoparticle concentrations in a tumor. So what we do is that then we need to simulate, depending on the available concentration, that what will be the thermal damage. For example, you can see here, so this is the tissue depth. At 0 we have a surface, so this is, you can say this is a tumor surface. Up to 5 millimeter we have a tumor region, and below 5 millimeter we have the tissue region. So depending on the blood flow, we need to evaluate that, okay, we have certain concentrations of the nanoparticles. Say we have around 20 microgram per ml within 1 millimeter region, we have around 20 microgram per ml within some 2 millimeter region of the tumor, or we have around 200 microgram per ml within the 3 millimeter region. So how these like actual nanoparticle doses which are present in a tumor, how these will alter the thermal damage profiles. So you can see here, so these just show the propagation of thermal damage. So you can see for this black one, we have thermal damage starts at certain time instant, and then it starts propagating in this direction. So it reaches at the surface, and similarly it is propagating along the depth of the tissue. So for another dose, so propagation is something like this. It reaches to the surface very fast, and it propagates slowly towards the depth of the tumor. So depending on the requirement, whether I need to damage only top 5 millimeter of the tumor, or I need to damage 5 millimeter of the tumor plus around 3 millimeter at depth of the tumor, then accordingly we can compute the time as well as the desired dose for this such kind of tumors. Similarly, so same parameters, but suppose if there is a higher blood flow in the tumor, then you can see what is happening to the thermal damage zones. For example, this and this, you can see for the lower blood flow, thermal damage zone is spreading very fast, whereas for this case, the spread of the zone is very narrow. So in this case, then we need to even increase the irradiation duration. Accordingly, we can also understand the blood perfusion dynamics. So like, for example, you can see here, so what is happening is that, for example, in this case, the blue line onto the right hand side. So here the blood flow is almost same for throughout the exposure duration. And obviously here, if the blood flow is not stopped, then it is not giving us the desired thermal damage. Whereas for this red line, you can see blood flow, it increases to a like maximum value, then it starts dropping down because there is a damage to the blood vessels. So accordingly, we are getting a good thermal damage in the surface. So this was about the pre-treatment planning. So now we are also parallelly developing a device for this. So here we are using a combination of peptide and this plasmonic photothermal technique, so that we will be able to destroy the cancer stem cells also. Because you people might have heard about this reoccurrence of cancer, which is very common. So nowadays there is a theory that there are like the normal healthy stem cells, we have cancer stem cells also, which are responsible for the growth of tumor in the body. So this technique has a potential to destroy the cancer stem cells. So we are conducting this study also. So there's around 5 institutions which I'm coordinating with to basically come up with a device as well as performance evaluation as well as the computational model for this, so that we can translate this technique to basically bedside of a patient. So these are the few. I'm not showing the device here just because of certain reasons. So we are just showing one optical fiber through which this device transmits the light. And so these are some experiments we conducted onto the chicken samples. So just inject some nanoparticles, these are the nanoparticles, and try to shine some light for around 10 minutes, then optical power of around 1.6 watts. So you can see here for a chicken sample where there are no nanoparticles, even after 10 minutes, we don't have much temperature rise. For example, when we start this experiment, we have a temperature of around 22 degrees Celsius, and after 10 minutes, the temperature reaches maximum to around 29 degrees Celsius. There is around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius rise in the temperature in the absence of nanoparticles. But when we inject nanoparticles here, you can see within the 10 minutes, we have like initial temperature is around 26 and we get temperature of around 54 degrees Celsius. So within 10 minutes, we are able to raise the temperature to the desired cell kill temperature. At the same time, you can see the temperature is highly confined into this light region itself. So we have very well cooled this portion of the chicken piece, which is not subjected to the nanoparticle or the light. Then also parallelly we are conducting some animal experiments to prove this numerical model as well as to test the performance of the device. So this is again a mice where we had induced DMBA based skin cancer, and we irradiated this skin cancer with certain wavelength of light for around 10 to 15 minutes, and we measured this temperature using the thermal cameras. So you can see here for 5 animals were there in this group, and for around 3 animals we could attain the desired temperatures of more than 45 degrees Celsius, which are sufficient to kill the tumor. And for the other 2 animals, where the temperatures were not attained that much, probably that is due to this, we were not able to deliver the desired nanoparticles based on the tumor characteristics. So these experiments are still going on. And there are a lot of challenges before we for the translation of this technique in actual practice. So for example, when we go for such therapeutics, there are changes occur during the therapy itself. There are changes in the optical coefficients because there are changes in the tissue structure due to heat, and also each and every tumor is totally different. And the blood flow, the nanoparticle injection, etc., all these are very much different. And also, we need to quantify how much number of nanoparticles are present within the tumor actually. So which still there are not much methods available for us. And so there are also literature technological gaps which need to be addressed. And also we need to further understand the mechanism of this. So that's all. With this, I will stop here. May have some questions.
Any questions from audience? Any questions? Any question from audience? Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, I have a question, ma'am. May I
Okay,
ask-
okay. Okay, Sandeep.
Yes.
I want to ask from sir that the cancer cell, are they different from normal cell in respect to the accumulation of nanoparticles? Suppose if we inject nanoparticles intravenously, will there be more concentration of these nanoparticles around this cancer cell as compared to normal cell?
No, you can't say, because cell is again low end term. So what we see here is the overall tumor instead of cells. So what is happening is that tumor vasculature is totally different. So and in the tumor, the vasculature is not same as that of the healthy tissue. So what we do here is it depends on the vasculature. So we can't say that healthy cells and tumor cells. We can say the healthy tissue as well as the tumor tissue. So tumorous tissue, obviously the distribution of these nanoparticles will be different for different tumors. For example, in case of pancreatic tumors, these are very hard to permeate. Whereas other tumors, these can be easily permeated. So it depends on the tumor tissue characteristics, not only the cells.
Thank you.
Any more questions from audience? So thank you, sir. Sir has given a wonderful and knowledgeable talk on cancer thermal therapy. Sir has explained the reasons of cancers. He has also explained the techniques of treatment of cancers. He told about the role of nanoparticles for treatment of cancers. So thank you, sir,
Okay.
for taking the time for us.
Okay. Thanks.
I am hand over the proceeding to Miss Asha Kumari. Dr. Asha?
Thank you, Dr. Indu. Am I
Okay.
audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Indu, may I leave now?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Okay, good morning to one and all present here.
Asha, continue, Asha, continue.
Okay, ma'am. Good morning to one and all present here. Now we are going to start session 12 of this international workshop. I would like to welcome Dr. Dinesh Pathak, who is expert speaker for this session. Before starting this session, I would like to introduce our speaker to audience. Dr. Pathak has done his PhD from GNDU, Amritsar. He completed his postdoc from University of Wadowice, Czech Republic, Europe. Dr. Pathak was visiting scientist from 2012 to 2015 in photovoltaic laboratory, Queen's University, Canada. He has published more than 60 research papers with 476 citations. In addition to this, he is a reviewer of 60 plus journals. Presently, Dr. Pathak is working as head of physics department, Sri Sai University, Palampur, Himachal Pradesh. His area of research is nanostructures, compounds, semiconductors, oxide nanocomposites, ion beam synthesis of nanomaterials, organic semiconductors, and inorganic hybrid semiconductors. Now I request Dr. Dinesh Pathak to start his talk. Please, sir.
Hello, good morning. Good morning to all.
Good morning.
Is my PPT visible on the screen?
Sir, your presentation is not visible. Yes, sir. Now it's visible, sir.
Okay. No. Okay, is it visible now?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay, good morning to all. I'm Dinesh Pathak, as already introduced by the host. So, I will be presenting today preliminary work of based upon nanofibers, which we just started from last 1 year. We understand that this 21st century, especially 2020, was a very difficult year for the mankind because of the novel coronavirus. And now we are in the stage of vaccination, and but for 1 year has already passed, and 1 year has already passed, and we were forced to live in isolation, and the whole world was in the influence, and we were forced to have masks on our face for the entire year, and we still afraid that the situation may still go further for some time till the vaccination. So people are also looking, along with vaccination, people are also looking worldwide for protective masks, and the nanofiber based masks are already in the market. Even in India, there is a company, the mask name is Swasa. You can buy a nanofiber based mask in 100 rupees. So we also started, considering this work, we also started to have the control of the porosity and structural control based upon nanotechnology, the field, especially nanofibers, so that we can have research, a bit preliminary research on this. So actually this field is comes in the domain of this membrane filtration. We understand that from very old civilization time, the filtration was very necessary. Even in the older time, people were filtering water to get the pure water. And with the increase in population, this challenge is going more and more because of so much pollution. So membrane filtration, the field of nanofiber, it comes in the domain of membrane filtration, where we need to filter a water to provide pure water to the in the cities and in other places as well. And also sometimes we need to filter air. Sometimes we need to protect ourselves from the various viruses. Sometimes we need the medical dressing, smart medical dressing, where the water cannot, where the water should not penetrate till to the wounds. And also in many other optoelectronic industries, like in batteries, we need battery separator. So this field, this can be achieved by having smart nanofibers. Smart nanofibers means controlling the porosity and diameter of the nanofibers according to our desire. So nanofiber is not nanofiber market. Nanofiber research is not a new. It has not started from last year, but the market is already reached US dollar, around $500 million US dollar market is there. I was working in a nanofiber industry after my postdoc in Czech Republic for few months, and even in Czech Republic is a very small country. Even in Czech Republic, there were around 50 nanofiber industries. So, considering this work along with my one of the MPhil student, we started this work last year, and I made this presentation as a preliminary presentation of our work, where the new researchers, they can understand that what are nanofiber, how they can be produced. So nanofibers, from this PPT, we can see that nanofiber are the structure, fiber-like structure, where we have fibers, and in between we have some porous voids. So these porous voids can be, or these porosity can be controlled by, when we make nanofiber, we can control the porosity. Either we can make them maybe 10 nanometer, or 20 nanometer, 25 nanometer, and similarly by controlling the diameter and other experimental conditions. So, for example, if we wish to stop the coronavirus, so we should have porosity of the size more than the coronavirus here. So similarly, if we wish to filter water, water has many toxic elements if it is polluted. So we can control the porosity for that application. So if we wish to say have, if we wish to stop the water, even for example, in some application we need to stop the virus and bacteria. So we can control we can have that desired porosity according to the bigger, lesser than the size of the water. So we can make air filter mask, virus filter mask, or water filter. We can use the nanofibers for water filtration, in battery as a battery separator. So there are plenty of applications of nanofibers. So in general, we define nanofiber. They have fiber-like structure. Even if you see cotton by naked eye, you see there are some fiber, but they are not, obviously they are not nano. But if you see a material where, if you have produced nanofibers, if you see that material with the help of very high resolution microscope, which are either scanning electron microscope or high resolution transmission electron microscope, so you can see such image. So we define them nanofibers when the diameter of the fiber is up to from 1 to 100 nanometer, and porosity is in between. Porosity is according to our desire. So further, there are many applications for wound dressing, for in other medical purposes, like PPE kits are very much in demand nowadays. So there we can sandwich in those PPE kits, we can sandwich the nanofiber so that we can protect the human body from the viruses. Similarly, in cosmetic industry, in other filtration, water filtration, air filtration, or optoelectronic application, we have so many plenty of applications. So considering this, even if there are even application of nanofiber in aeroplane industry, where we can prevent the sounds to reach to the passengers sitting inside. So we can protect, we can have so plenty of applications. So why nanofibers? There are other mediums as well, like you have RO system at your home, or for filtration you can use other things as well. But why nanofiber? Because their size is very easily tunable. We can just control the conditions when we are growing nanofibers, and we can control the porosity and diameter, and then we can have plenty of applications. Also, they are very lightweight. Obviously, if we will have a thin layer of nanofiber sandwich in some media, they will be lightweight. And so, considering these, people are moving toward the nanofiber nanotechnology solutions for these. And then, how nanofibers can be made out? They can be either of polymers, or they can be a blend of polymer and some metal oxides. And later, if we sinter, those polymers can be ejected out, and we can have. So why we make a blend? Because to have some mechanical strength of those obtained nanofibers. So these are just points that of which materials we can make nanofiber, either pure polymers or polymer inorganic blends. Then this slide is just showing about the properties of nanofibers. They have very large surface to volume ratio. Tunable porosity. Tunable porosity means if we desire to stop novel coronavirus, then we should have porosity. It is expected that the size of coronavirus is around 110 nanometer. So similarly, other bacteria, they have size in micro, so they can also be stopped. If we wish to filter water, so that may have that type of nanofiber, which should have different porosity. So every application requires a different porosity. So they can the porosity can be tuned. The porosity can be tuned by controlling the experimental condition which we do during the fabrication of nanofiber. They are lightweight. Structural control is easy, and they have low cost as well. So that is these properties attract researchers toward nanofibers. So how nanofiber can be? Am I audible? If someone can confirm.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I am not seeing the people here, only my slides. So there are many methods to fabricate nanofiber in laboratory as well as in industry. You can have electrospinning, then you can have template synthesis, then force spinning. Force spinning is a kind of instrument where we have a big chamber and you fill the solution inside, and there are nanopores, in hundreds of nanopores in the outer region, and when you rotate it with very heavy speed, then the nanofibers, material comes out, and that can be dried or sintered later depending upon the application. So there are many methods like this. And now coming to, we actually used electrospinning. Actually, one of my colleagues, Dr. Aman Mahajan, he is having this machine at Department of Physics, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. And I also worked, actually this experimental work which I am presenting here, this was carried out one of my MPhil student who just submitted his thesis. But when I was in Czech Republic in industry, I was working on electrospinning method as well as force spinning. Then we can have melt spinning even. We can just melt a material and then we can make nanofiber. That type kind of instrument is different. But we used electrospinning. So what is electrospinning? I will come to the instrument. This is the instrument actually. eSpin, this company is actually Indian. One of the fellows, Mr. Dr. Sandeep Patil, he was a fellow at IIT Kanpur, and he established this company. And this machine, my colleague Dr. Aman Mahajan, he purchased from this. He purchased. So what is electrospinning? We should make first a solution, either a polymer solution or a blend of polymer and metal oxide precursor. So we must have some question that why I'm saying that we are adding metal oxide in polymer, because polymers they don't have much good strength. So sometimes that is why we are using metal oxide nanofibers. And later, if we wish to have blended nanofiber, that they can be used as they are. And if we wish to remove the polymer, so that can be calcinated. Calcination is a phenomena when we heat the final product at high temperature to remove the extra precursors, and then we can have titanium oxide nanofiber or other metal oxide nanofiber. So what we do here is we just make if this electrospinning, actually the instrument varies from company to company. So this is syringe based electrospinning method. The earlier equipment on which I was working in Czech Republic for some time, there we were having a chamber and we were filling the solution. So, but the principle is same. So what is the principle? Just we fill the either syringe or a chamber with the solution, and we apply opposite potentials over. This is actually drum here, collector, this one, and we have syringe here. So we apply opposite potential, either positive here, maybe, or negative here. So because of the high potential, the solution is forced from here to make fiber-like structure over this drum. So this is the principle of actually electrospinning method. And again, this slide is repeated again about the applications. So we use titanium oxide because it is very versatile, low cost. It has applications. Because along with the filtration, we can use nanofiber in other applications as well, either protective coating, self-cleaning windows, or in solar cell, water treatment, etc. So that is why titanium oxide was blended with this polymer PVP. And this is actually precursor of titanium oxide. One solution we made of it, and second PVP. Then both solutions were mixed together, and then this is just a preliminary experiment which we did, that we varied the percentage of concentration of polymer to have to obtain different porosity and different diameter. So just a simple experiment. We mixed two solutions, and then just again what these parameter we fixed here, and then this is actually the close view of the experiment. That this is a syringe. So because this is syringe based electrospinning equipment, so we filled the solution over here and we applied potential, one-sided potential here, one over the drum, and then fiber-like structure that is forced by electric field to have layers over here, and they can be collected later. If we wish to have the blended nanofiber of the material which we started with, we will not heat in later. And if we wish to remove the polymer to have only titanium oxide fiber, they can be calcinated. So then what we did is we obtained the nanofiber material, and then to see obviously all material scientists, they understand that the characterizations are very necessary, what we have produced and what is the internal structure to see possible application further. So we did some of the three different nanofiber samples obtained. So you can see here that we were successful in obtaining nanofibers. These are the fibers, and the voids, we name them as porous if they are porous, and so porosity is optimized here. Here we have different porosity, here different, and here is different. So again, various samples can be optimized, various conditions can be further optimized. We can control the parameter further, means we can change the potential, then porosity will be different, obviously. We can change the distance, even this. We can change the polymer concentration as well. So the porosity can be optimized, and further now you will see that what we did, why we did this, because again, initially I said that because they are porous, highly porous materials, so they can be used as membrane for either water filtration or air filtration or protection from various masks. What we are using is, during this COVID time, we have masks of simple either cotton or other materials. But if we will sandwich these layers in between the two cloths, or maybe some different things, then obviously if the porosity of porosity is is less than, maybe if the porosity is maybe say 80 nanometer or 70 nanometer, obviously the coronavirus that will not pass through it, because some still research is going on that if this novel coronavirus COVID-19, it sustain in air, how much it travel in air. So, and that is why the government and WHO has warned us that we should maintain some distance. But if we will have masks like this of porosity less than 100 nanometer, air, we can easily breathe. We can easily breathe, but the various viruses and bacteria, they will not pass through. Similarly, if we optimize the porosity for the size, the porous size is optimized for water. We can filter water. We can have so many other applications. So here we see that we successfully obtained. This is not a new research. The mask is already in market, and even if you buy, I don't know if they are available in Himachal or not. But if you go to a medical shop, you can ask for a nanofiber mask. The cost is only around 100 rupees, which initially this is Swasa company they launched. Swasa company was established by is the same guy who established this eSpin company for nanofiber. We just started work that further possibility of controlling the porosity by optimizing the various conditions, either solution concentration and all these things, to see the possibility of these and further, which we will do for other applications as well. So this is just data obtained from SAM that we found that porosity is of the order of this range. XRD just suggested that they were amorphous, but we were not bothered about the XRD results because we are not interested. When we are using nanofibers for masks, we are not interested in XRD, that we don't bother which kind of structure they have. But when we are going for some optoelectronic application, obviously we need to see the structure. So that is why XRD was also performed, but we found that they were amorphous. VET analysis is a technique that, because by SEM, the exact idea of porosity cannot be estimated. SEM is not accurate for porosity. So what we do is, VET is a method where we use adsorption and desorption of non-reacting gases. This technique is available at IIT Mandi. So if someone is interested, maybe many of you are maybe doing. So what we do is we have material inside the chamber, and it is exposed to the non-reactive gases, and then adsorption and desorption that estimate how much porous they are. So we found that the porosity is around 4 nanometer, 2 nanometer, and 1.5 or something around again 2 nanometer, which is very good for maybe various applications, like especially stopping the virus, because virus has bigger size. Coronavirus is not new. If you are aware, the novel coronavirus, which has a new structure, which came from Wuhan, as people are saying, this has a new structure. But if you see in the internet, if you're a researcher, a beginning researcher, then if you search on the internet, there are many papers published from around 2008 to till date on coronavirus. So, but even we are not still aware. People are saying, WHO is saying that the coronavirus has size around 120 nanometer, and other viruses has a bigger size than this, like Ebola and etc. And so many other viruses. So obviously, with this porosity, they will not pass through these fibers, but air can pass through. So we can breathe, and we will be protected from these viruses. So similarly, various other this is again just a repetition. We also tried to filter water, but the experiment was not a good big success. So we will in the process to do this again with some other colleagues. So we will see if we will be able to. Obviously, from here it is seen that we got some filtration done, but actually we could not filter arsenic and lead with the help of these membranes or fibers, but we are still in the process to do and repeat the experiments. So this slide is again a comparison that if we obtain a porous material which has porosity of 1 to 4 nanometer, what can be the applications? Because size of water molecule is less than this, so that will cross through it. Water can go inside that, but the heavy elements, they have bigger size, they will not pass through it. The viruses are generally like Ebola, they are well studied. The Ebola virus, we know that the outbreak was last year, or maybe 4 to 5 years before in African countries. So that has size less than 100 nanometer, but more than 50 nanometer, so that they can be stopped with these fibers. Then SARS and other world flu like Zika or Hanta virus, which just came out in China from BCB, and we found a few months before. So they can be protected with the help of these nanofibers. Just the thing is that means they can have many applications controlling either COVID or these Hanta or maybe SARS or maybe some other things. Just the thing is to control the porosity. And as a material scientist, we are able to control the porosity just by having optimized experimental conditions, changing the pH of the polymer, changing the in electrospinning, changing the potential, changing the distance of that syringe and the collecting drum, or many other conditions. We can change the porosity, and obviously the different porous materials, these beautiful materials, they can have many applications in filtration or battery separators or in other smart material in future. So what are the challenges actually when we are using a fiber material, nanofiber material for some application in optoelectronic, not in optoelectronic, but if we are in filtration or somewhere, can you please confirm if you are able to listen to me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So means there are many challenges still in the field of nanofibers to control.
Sorry, sir, you are not audible.
Actually, I got a call in between. I'm still audible?
Yes, sir, you are
Yes, sir.
audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Coming to conclusion, that there are still many challenges which scientists, various scientists and various researchers need to address. So if you have some question, we can discuss. And if someone from you, from those who are in master degree or somewhere, if they wish to join research in this field, they can call me or they can contact me on this mail ID, and we can continue further. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now session is open for queries. Is there any query for participants?
If you have some question, or if not, then maybe you can mail me also. Also later, I have given my mail ID there.
Is there any query for from participants? Okay, I think there is no query. Okay, sir. Thank you, Dr. Pathak.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Pathak, Dr. Pathak has, yes. Yes,
Yeah, if
please.
still later you will have, maybe some participant will have some question, or maybe some suggestion, or maybe if some people wish to join research in this field, then we can collaborate, and I welcome the people. Means if someone have some query, even they can mail me, please. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Pathak. Dr. Pathak has wonderfully explained about nanofibers. He has also explained how we can synthesize nanofibers, what are various applications of nanofibers, and he has also explained about use of these nanofibers for against COVID-19. And he has also explained about different porosity assessment techniques. Thank you, Dr. Pathak. Now, I declare the end of this session for today's workshop. There will be, now we will meet on tomorrow. Tomorrow there will be only one session at 10 a.m. So I hope all the participants will join us for tomorrow on 10 a.m. Thank you all.
Was very informative.
Thank you.